Then, a slightly different topic, but interconnected, is the overall roadmap and like where will the technology of Ethereum Classic go? Like what are we planning on doing? So I really believe in this philosophy called Shuhari, which is like a martial arts notion of like learn, master, and then innovate. So before anybody earns the right to go ahead and say, hey, let's take this existing system, which has had a tremendous amount of critical thinking and trial and error built into it, and let's throw it all away and build something new, they have to prove they know what they're talking about. And just being a founder of it doesn't make me credible, because I left the project pretty early on relative to its history. So it was important to me that before, from IOHK's side, we made any proposals at all about where we'd like to take the platform outside of conversation pieces like these are things we could do, that we demonstrate that we have a mastery over the protocol that is only equaled by people on the Ethereum Foundation side. So this is the kind of the first point of the Girth and Deek project, is to say the proof is in the pudding. We've delivered a client. We understand Ethereum at a very elemental and deep level. We have shown our transparency by having weekly stand-ups, a public roadmap, open code, and also when we go through the security audit and all these other things, these things will also be public. So people understand there's nothing up the sleeve. It's, they see the intent. So after that's done, there will be some proposals that come from our side about, for late 2017 and 2018, what can we do with Ethereum Classic to differentiate it from Ethereum and make it a platform and a protocol in its own right that has a kind of perhaps different use cases, or at the very least a different view of computation. Now, we've already started the research and the engagements. We actually have already started collecting a lot of information from just going and talking to great people. I was in Shanghai recently at the Shanghai Winter School, and I had a chance to talk to a lot of different cryptographers about their research in Ethereum, everything from state channels to new consensus concepts. We've had a lot of discussions about basically what can we do to speed up validation or shard the state space. Blockchain partitioning has been a really hot topic that we've been going over. So there's a lot of really novel concepts. And actually what's really cool is that while Ethereum Foundation has been really focused on proof of stake, and frankly, we have too. We have 10 people working on proof of stake every day. So it is cool and intoxicating. It turns out that there's a lot of innovation in the proof of stake, the proof of work world. For example, there's these proofs of sublinear complexity that Agalos has come up with, which are really neat. It seems a lot easier to implement a secure zero-knowledge checkpointing system with a proof of work system than it would be with a proof of stake system. We have a better notion of how to do sidechains with proof of work than with proof of stake, although I think we can eventually reach parity there. So I think that there needs to be better PR for proof of work. There needs to be certainly some acknowledgement of its downsides. I don't think it's the end-all be-all. Macaulay would be the first to tell people that 5 mining pools control all of the hash power for Bitcoin. And so, if 5 people control the state, that's not so good. So there really does need to be some conversations about how we decentralize mining or make it more efficient, but it does seem to be a viable paradigm. And I do think it is something that is compatible with smart contracts in general. But I think there needs to be a broader conversation. Like there's been some great work out of Cornell on trusted hardware, in particular using Intel SGX to do all kinds of things like smart contracts that are private. There's this concept called sealed glass proofs, where you can prove you know something and sell it to a person. It's a really novel notion. They also have basically like Augur enabled by trusted hardware. It's called Town Crier. So we're just at the beginning of using these types of frameworks, but they're very well proliferated because every Intel chip has them now. And ARM has equivalent notions with its secure hardware zone. So when you start talking about having every cell phone and every computer have these special modules, you have a very democratic distribution of hardware, and this can become a second layer to assist in removing some trust or to speeding up computation. So I do think there needs to be a more meaningful conversation about where trusted hardware's role is in our technology and what we can do with it. But I am pretty excited about the notion of sticking with mining and perhaps doing something like Bizcoin or twin chains, so maybe a 2-stage protocol. I am also really excited about the notion of innovating on the friending side. I think we would be very stupid as a community if we passed on the opportunity of trying for a treasury, because that's like the ultimate repudiation of the whole notion of centralized funding to a foundation. You say like, okay, well, one model is you have an ICO and you raise all this money. I've done it myself. It's a good model. But on the other hand, the problem with that model, and no one has fully addressed this, is dealing with the centralization of that money. You only have one decider. And if that person's like good and honest and fair and wise, maybe they make great decisions. If they turn out to be like Donald Trump or something like that, your whole ecosystem may go a little crazy for a little bit. So it's important to say that the capital is decentralized, that there's some way that more than one actor can have access to that at some point. And the tech is there for this. It just needs to be properly packaged and vetted and assembled. And it's, as a company, one of our priorities to do very rigorous research on it. So we're going to be presenting that, and our hope is we can get the Ethereum Classic community to get behind it. The last point is about formal verification. This is one of the most boutique and exotic topics in development, and it's not commonly done by most developers. If you go to like a full stack web dev and you say, where's your cock proof for this? They're going to probably look at you pretty weird because it's just not a common notion. But it does occur in academia, especially in PLT when you're talking about functional programming. And it turns out that there's like 20 years of theory that has really advanced things and made the tools a lot better and sped things up a lot. But that theory hasn't worked its way into industry. Now, one of the things that IOHK as a company is extremely focused on is basically how are we going to build a pipeline where we can not only write good functional code and make that work well. It's amazing. We found a way to build a cryptocurrency in Haskell. That was not easy. And we're almost there. And we're like, yay, great. But that's not good enough because Haskell's just Haskell. We want to do formal verification as well. It's because we're like, it's like the Spinal Tap of cryptocurrencies. We have to take it up to 11. So the formal verification component is really an interesting discussion. But then you have to kind of have like an ontology of what's meaningful. What should you verify? What should you talk about? What guarantees should you give? Obviously, there's the crypto, and then there's a lot of discussion about the network stack and consensus. These are three low-hanging fruits, and there's already been some great work like VerityCock and so forth. So we're retaining a really, really super good, super specialized firm to come in and help IOHK as a company learn how to do this well. And our hope is that we can take some of those techniques and methods and come June, bring them into the Growth Indeed team and start putting those methods and techniques first into our development practices so that that client we produce will be the first formally verified Ethereum Classic client or Ethereum client in general. Second, that we can take those techniques and have them work their way into the smart contract stack, which I think is much more meaningful. The good news in that part is we're not alone. There's actually already been some great papers. Like there was an Idris paper out of Chalmers University, which said, how do we use dependent typing in smart contracts? And it was very well written. Also, Yoichi Hirai is working with the Ethereum Foundation. He's working at verifying the EVM bytecode. So I think there's a lot of great progress that's being made and some good thought that's starting to be put into it. It's kind of scattered. And our hope is over the next 6 months, we can unify all of it and actually figure out how to make it work well and get it into our development pipeline, and then eventually build some tools that as smart contract developers can actually do this. I don't think all smart contracts require formal verification. Honestly, it's probably going to be library level work. So like the stuff that Zeppelin is doing, or if you're going to do a DAO or something like that, that will be the standard in the community. But then your everyday smart contracts will probably continue to use Solidity, which is a good language and there's good tooling for it. So that's what's coming, like an analysis of proof of work and how can we make it more efficient and transparent and fair. The idea of overlaying trusted hardware into the network in some capacity and trying to understand what that does to the network and where we get benefit from it, and if it increases democracy in the system or not. A really deep analysis of decentralized funding, and then finally bringing formal verification both into the client itself as well as the smart contracts that the client runs on it. The research is ongoing, so expect outputs on the second half of this year, and our hope is to take that research from white paper into production sometime in Q1 to Q2 of 2018.